You are tuned in to your source for fantasy hockey news and daily degenerate gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, jam-packed Monday episode with all of the top waiver wire targets that you need. And we have to talk about these San Jose Sharks. Big time bets. Thank you for joining us. Let's get this Monday paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yet another loaded weekend of NHL and fantasy hockey news means you are tuned in to the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, loaded full of all the takeaways that you need to dominate this upcoming week. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, I'm going to be making a lot of first purchases on today's episode in terms of laying claim to some waiver wire targets that honestly I feel at the start of the year you can almost make some moves to your team. Yeah, we're doing flyers week to week. We look at that as well. But at the start of the year, you might be able to honestly get some players on your team that you could hold down for a longer period of time. That's why you are tapped into the show. But honestly, the San Jose Sharks, you and I got to talk about that before we even get to waiver wire. We're going to touch on Jack Hughes getting hurt. I feel like he got lucky in that situation, Steele. That play looked really nasty. We'll break it all down, including Monday's big-time betting board. I don't know how many games we got tonight, Steele. I think it's something like 4
games.
There you go. Thank you for holding me down on the numbers. I want your take right away, though. You mentioned something about Logan Couture in the offseason. I know you have your eyes on some of these fantasy, quote-unquote, assets of the Sharks. What's your take on this historically awful start, allowing 2 10 pieces in the consecutive games? Let's dwell on these Sharks for a second before we get to our waiver wire targets.
Look, this has to be by far the worst NHL team in history of this league. This has been by far the worst start to a season, by far one of the worst looking teams. I sent out a tweet a couple of weeks ago or maybe last week in the worst season recorded in the NHL were by the 1993 San Jose Sharks. They went 11-71-2. And I'm honestly sitting here thinking that they might win a handful of games. They might go 5-74-3, something along those lines. It just with the way they're playing right now. And just by looking at this graphic, if you're watching on YouTube, absolutely insane numbers. 11 games played so far for the Sharks, 0 wins. They have 12 goals for in 11 games. They're scoring less than 1 goal a game right now. And they have 55 goals against for a minus 43 goal differential right now. And like you said, back-to-back games with 10 goals allowed from the Vancouver Canucks and Pittsburgh Penguins. And I counted, there were 26 different scores combined, 13 apiece from the Penguins and Canucks. So just a brutal start for the brutal start for the San Jose Sharks. It doesn't even look like they have any fantasy assets out there that you can pick from. And like you and I have said many, many times on this podcast, you can always seem to find great fantasy players on bad teams. Even from last season, I know they weren't as bad, but Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz you could get from Arizona, Erik Karlsson from San Jose last year. But we now stand corrected by this year's San Jose Sharks team. There is no rosterable player right now. Like Logan Couture, who's been on the IR for the entire season, hasn't played a game, is their most rostered player at 45% on Yahoo right now. So that just speaks very big on the type of players the Sharks have right now. And again, sorry, I'm kind of going on a rant a little bit about this.
No, you're good. You're good.
Going forth with Logan Couture, 2 things come to mind about this Sharks future. The first thing is Logan Couture is gone. He is going to be traded, whether that's at the trade deadline or, sooner than the trade deadline.
If he gets healthy, why not?
He will be traded. And look, that's why he's maybe not even returning to the lineup right now. Take your time with the rehab. Get fully healthy so the San Jose Sharks can facilitate a trade because, again, he's got the highest fantasy value. He's got the highest value for the Sharks trade-wise.
Sure.
And he brings a lot to the table for any cup contending team. He has a modified no trade clause, so he can submit 3 teams he'll accept the trade to. But I guarantee a cup contending team would love to have a guy like Logan Couture, who gets everything done in the offensive zone and is great in the defensive side of things too. And the second thing that comes to mind is, even though it's weird to say this about a guy who makes $8.1 million every year for the next 7 years in Tomas Hertl, but you got to feel bad for this guy for the display of talent and skill that's around him right now.
Mike Greer, the GM, relatively new GM in San Jose. We love that move of him being instilled there. We like what he's going to be able to do. But my goodness, and he hasn't been afraid to move on from major pieces, and he's obviously going to continue to shake up this lineup, but a minus 43 goal differential. Already, Steele, is just all kinds of ugly.
Games.
And you made a really excellent point of you and I saying on a lot of situations, you can always dig in the trenches and find some value. There is no value to be had here on this San Jose Sharks team. They're giving up 20 goals over that 2-game span. You and I just have to talk about it very quickly because I got the lines up here. Mike Hoffman, Duclair, and Hertl on the top line. Granlund, Eklund, and Fabian Zetterlund right now on that second line. I looked at a player like Philip Zadina going into the year, Steele, thinking maybe with all of the caliber over his minor career, a high draft pick, maybe a new change of scenery. There's nothing going on here with the San Jose Sharks of any kind of substantial fantasy value. Mario Ferraro, maybe he's your last blue liner for banger leagues, bringing those hits and the PIMs, but you got to get away from any piece that you had invested unless Logan Couture gets healthy and he gets dealt to a contender. Then maybe you're going to pay attention to some of that news over the next week or two, but I really don't think it's happening, Steele. So I think this is a full dump and dumpster fire situation. But what's not is paying attention to the waiver wire. And very quickly, before we get to our first break and come back with all of our waiver wire targets, I want to just throw out a player that he's not on my ad list for this week because of what the Chicago Blackhawks have in terms of their lineup. The Chicago Blackhawks only play twice this week in terms of Tampa and Florida. They're going south. But right now, Philip Kurashev is getting the run out on that top line with Connor Bedard, and he's producing 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points in 4 games. If you're looking for offense and you're willing to take the shot on Kurashev this week, while he's still getting that deployment with Bedard, which is fantasy relevant, Steele, I don't care because right now Bedard is starting to feel it. You were right. He started a little slow. Guys playing with elite young pieces I'm paying attention to. So it might not be this week because it's only 2 games, but make sure you're paying attention to Kurashev. That was the one I wanted to get off early, right before the break.
That's a great honorable mention because like you said, they've been mixing and matching some different lineups right now to figure out who plays best with
some success as well.
Yeah, with some success. Taylor Hall's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. Ryan Donato's been up there. Philip Kurashev's now up there. Tyler Johnson was up there for a bit as well for a couple of games when Taylor Hall. So they've been mix and matching the lines up to see who fits best. And Phil Kurashev had a really good game the other day in that 5-2 win. So great honorable mention. I want to talk about these 2 guys really quickly. I'll try not to go into depth because I've talked about them a lot. But Jake Walman is still rostered at 18% right now on Yahoo.
Thank you, Steele.
Getting an absolute, we said this. He's getting a big opportunity playing on the top pairing with Moritz Seider. He's got 3 goals, 6 points total, 22 shots, 33 blocks. He's on the second power play unit. He has an absolute rocket of a one-timer. I watched that game against the Bruins the other day. It's lethal. He's on the first penalty kill unit. And I said this in the offseason.
Yes,
you could potentially get 30 plus points. He could maybe even get 40 if he keeps playing like this alongside Seider. And then he's top 25 in fantasy points amongst defensemen right now. So
love it.
Detroit Red Wings, 3 games, Rangers, Canadians, and Blue Jackets. So very advantageous schedule for the Red Wings.
Love it. And thank you for bringing it up. He was on the discrepancy between the ownership when I looked up Walman between ESPN and Yahoo had me super thrown off because in ESPN, he's like very, very high, something like 70% plus.
Yeah.
And in Yahoo, his numbers are way down. So that was a little bit of a I didn't even understand why that was, because Walman is now a big time fantasy production piece. And thank you for bringing me on to him early in the offseason. Thank you for joining us for another Waiver Wire Monday episode. We got a bunch more Waiver Wire targets coming down the pipe, including talking a little bit about Jack Hughes and what you'd be able to do with him. Big time bets. But today's episode, it's brought to you by Game Time. Game Time, the best app that you want to be downloading so you don't have a frustrating ticket buying experience. You never want to be rushing around looking for tickets for your favorite event. Easy to find and buy tickets on Game Time for every event in your area: comedy, theater, basketball, baseball, concerts, and everything in between. With zone deals, you pick the section and the Game Time finds you the seats for an average of 18% savings. I don't know what else you need to hear, Steele. We love using the Game Time app. Super easy to buy tickets for any of your favorite events. So make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. But also, today's episode is brought to you by Parkview Advance. Much easier process than you might imagine. Invite all the entrepreneurs out there and the Locked On NHL fans to check out parkviewadvance.com. That's parkviewadvance.com. Steele, we're getting all the plugs in on today's episode.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. Flip, Waiver Wire Target, Monday edition, every single Monday.
Yes, sir.
The Waiver Wire is your friend out there. You got to look out for some of those hidden gems, hidden talents who are starting off hot for the first month of October and hopefully continuing that into November. Who are some of your targets you're looking at this upcoming week?
Thank you very much. And honestly, you and I throw out a lot of names every single week. This is what we do on this show. Monday Waiver Wires, obviously, we're trying to set you up week to week for the best names. Dude, last week we were crushing it. Ronek, Sanheim, all of our targets, most of them, they were banging out this week. So I hope we can continue that this week. A player that I've talked about up and down, and I'm going to keep the breakdown short and sweet. How is Lukas Dostal only out there owned at 36% in Yahoo and 17% on ESPN? The Ducks play 4 times this week: Preds, Avs, Panthers, Blues. Avs, okay. Other than that, I'm really liking the lineup for the Ducks this week. John Gibson is hurt. We don't really know what the outcome is going to be, but right now, Lukas Dostal is the guy getting the crease. I said this at length over the last year, and now he's starting to prove it, though, Steele. The numbers back him up, and I'll just say this. Don't even read into the injury. Don't read into the Anaheim Ducks on the come-up. All of those are important factors. Take a look at what this kid has done. 920 save percentage, 5-1-0, and then 280 goals against. Start paying attention to what I've been saying for the past year and a half. This is the number 1 goaltender for the Anaheim Ducks of the future. Of course, they still have invested in John Gibson, and if you're a smart GM, which I think there's a lot of in this league, you're going to want to give John Gibson a little bit of show, because maybe you get a piece for him at the deadline anyhow, or you keep him. Lukas Dostal, available out there this week for sure. You should be going out in there. And also, Steele, back me up here, please. The Anaheim Ducks are a much improved squad.
Much improved squad. That's also why I have another Anaheim Ducks player on my waiver wire targets. I've also got another goalie on my waiver wire targets, who I'll get to in a little bit. But I got to mention these 2 players really quick. First of all, I've talked about him again. Trevor Moore, 18% rostered right now. If you need a player who gets shots and points, he's got 6 goals, 11 points total, and 34 shots so far this season. That's what you're going to get from Trevor Moore. He's out there. 3 games this week: Golden Knights, Penguins, and Flyers. And then I also agree with you on this player. You've been on this player for a little bit as well. Lawson Crouse getting very hot right now, 13% rostered. He's on a 5-game point streak with 7 points total, 19 shots, 18 hits, 7 blocks. He's heating up. He's got an absolute lethal wrist shot, honestly. When he gets when he finds the open spot, open area, Very quick release, always
Thank
gets,
you.
again, like I said, into that open area, gets open, uses that quick snapshot of his. He's at a 21.1 shooting percentage right now. In the last 2 seasons, he was under just 16%. So very lethal, underrated shot from Lawson Crouse.
I agree.
And like the Anaheim Ducks, the Coyotes have been very impressed as well so far. They're pretty good in the first month. They're 5-5-1.
You don't say. You don't say.
They've been pretty good so far as well. That little bet you've got going on in our fantasy league might be heading your way.
I may have sallied out on that bet, but yeah, respect.
This is a very important week, though, I think, for the Arizona Coyotes.
Yes.
They've got 3 games, a few division rival games. They've got the Seattle Kraken, Nashville Predators, and St. Louis Blues. So Lawson Crouse out there for sure in Yahoo.
Well, I hope you like this take, Steele, because I'm going to have to take a look at this Minnesota Wild situation. And now, all of a sudden, Marco Rossi, 9th overall draft pick, Ottawa 67s. Let's pay attention here because I like what's happening now in Minnesota in terms of them shuffling the lines. And it's almost, and I want your take on this, but again, I've been at length about saying I love Bill Guerin and I like what he's doing. The man's playing chess. He's not playing checkers. And I really like that he's shown patience with some of these young pieces and waited, right? He's put Zuccarello with Hartman and with Kaprizov, and there's been a lot of calls. I think you've also probably backed this take of putting the young guns together. And now the young guns are going to be given a shot to play together. Matt Boldy is back. Marco Rossi, if you haven't been paying attention, has 5 goals and 7 points in 11 games. And this top line, Steele, is it going to stay together? Is it going to produce? Those are questions. But right now, Rossi, Kaprizov, and Boldy are going to get the run out, and I have a really keen eye on seeing if that can produce. Marco Rossi, 7% owned on Yahoo, 4.7 on ESPN, and the Wild play 4 games this week, including the Sabres, Islanders, Rangers, and Stars. And I know that might not be the best run out in terms of offensive output, but I don't care because I need to see what that trio can do, Steele. And I really think the Wild have the top line that they've been looking for a very long time.
I love that you mentioned Marco Rossi because he's on my list as well. Rostered at 7% right now. 6 points in his last 6 games, 4 of them goals. He's got 29 shots. And like you mentioned, Dean Evason now switching things up. They get Matt Boldy back. He gets to the top line. Zuccarello drops down to the second line, now playing with Ryan Hartman and Marcus Johansson. So they're switching things up. They're spreading out the love throughout their top 3 lines in their forward group. And you got to love this too. He's now on the first power play unit. Wild are electing to go with 5 forwards on power play 1 right now. So bold. Interesting. Bold for Boldy.
Boldy. Yeah, my bad.
Hey, you got to do it when it's there. Sorry. Absolutely love it. But yeah, like you said, they've got a very good schedule because they got 4 games, but definitely some tough matchups against Islanders, Rangers, and Stars. Could be a pretty high scoring game against the Sabres. But got to mention Marco Rossi. I've got 2 players left. I'll get to the one after our sponsor read. But I got to talk about a former Minnesota Wild and current LA King goaltender, Cam Talbot.
Come on.
Is on the list right now.
He's on my list too, baby. Here we go. Let's get it.
So he's currently at 65% rostered right now, but he's up. That's up 15% from last week. So last week he was at 50% rostered on Yahoo. And again, all the doubters, all the haters saying that he's not a starter anymore, saying that he doesn't have it in him. Well, Talbot has established himself as the starter for the LA Kings. 9 games played, 6-2-1 with a .923 save percentage and a .214 goals against average. I can hear the debate right now. Well, he's got better defensive group in front of him. He's got better team in front of him with the LA Kings than he had with the Ottawa Senators last year. Last year he was injured, but he still had a 911 or a 914 save percentage last year. So he's still getting it done. Struggled with injuries, but nonetheless, you got to get Cam Talbot if he's out there in your fantasy league right now.
40% on ESPN, which was up over the last couple of days by a percentage of almost 20+%. Wow. Flyers, Vegas, and the Pens this week. Flyers are up and down right now. Vegas is obviously the best team in the league right now, both on paper and on the ice.
By far.
But the Pens are having their struggles. Man, Steele, I got to figure this out. Pens and Flyers, though, that's not exactly a bad situation. This LA Kings team is also not lost on the road this year and are flexing their muscle offensively. You've been calling out Quentin Byfield for 2 years, and now here he goes. They have balance up and down the lineup, and they're dealing with injuries and still getting it done very effectively. Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley coming into this year, Steele, you and I weren't buying in. I'm buying in now to Cam Talbot because those numbers speak for themselves, and who cares what he's done over the last couple of years in terms of inconsistencies? Because I'll say this, he's never played behind a good team like the LA Kings have right now. They're cooking. He's cooking. Go get yourself a piece of Cam Talbot if you can. And Steele, take us to break, baby.
And we're going to be cooking soon with those big time bets. 4 games on the Monday schedule. We've got some absolute spicy big time bet action coming up. But this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, which Flip and I both suggest you do right now, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy and safe to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more options. But our fan favorite, of course, is the same game parlay. You spice up those odds, you get it going. We got the Maple Leafs same game parlay going potentially for the Tampa Bay Lightning game Monday night. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe, leave a follow, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and all that feedback you give us every single day. Continue leaving the comments on the YouTube channel as well. Again, we love having conversations and going back and forth with all of our listeners out there as much as we can. Flip, before we get to big time bets, do you have any more waiver wire targets? I've got one more that I want to list off, and then we'll get to the action.
You sniped a few right off my table. Cam Talbot and Lawson Crouse being 2 of them. Loving those angles, though. You covered them nicely. Please take it away with your last player, and let's hammer these bets.
Well, you're talking about Lukas Dostal from the Anaheim Ducks. I've got a defenseman that no one saw coming this season, Pavel Mintyukov.
Yeah,
Mintyukov. That's how you pronounce it. I'll get it eventually. I was practicing this before.
Mintyukov. Yeah, I'm with you.
Mintyukov. Yeah, we'll go with that. Pavel Mintyukov. 47% rostered right now. No one saw this coming. He's up 40% from last week. First round draft pick from 2022, 10th overall in 2022, and quickly getting recognition in the fantasy hockey community, and rightfully so. Through 10 games, 1 goal, 7 points. He's got 16 shots, 16 blocks, 22 hits.
Yes.
He has quick transition up the ice. He's not afraid to jump into the plays and even take chances in the offensive zone, skating below the goal line. He's now on the first power play unit as well, with Drysdale out with injury. He's playing just over 19 minutes, so he's getting good looks at 19 years old.
Steele.
3 games this week, Penguins, Flyers, and those San Jose Sharks. So it could be a very high-scoring game against the worst team in the NHL.
6'2", almost 200 pounds. And now have a look at this Anaheim Ducks team, Steele. Sprinkled with impressive talent up and down the lineup. And it's going to take some time. We're not throwing a Stanley Cup moniker or even a playoff moniker on this squad, but they're close and they're coming. And that's where these angles with fantasy hockey, you need to pounce on. We mentioned that even with the San Jose Sharks, you want to be looking for bad angles for good fantasy value. Right now, the Sharks don't have it. But look at this Ducks team. Last year, they were almost at the bottom, Steele, in every single respectable category that you look at. And we're not ready to ring their praises all day long, but we're ready to have a look at some of these young pieces already impressing. I hope these bets that we're about to lay down impress. And if you're okay, I got a short breakdown here. So let me just fire off all 3 if you're good with it.
Let's hear it.
Let me start with Boston and Dallas.
Yes.
Looking at this, the Dallas Stars should be a stingy defensive club. And over their last number of games, Dallas has been involved in a couple of high-scoring games, aside from this Vancouver 2-0 loss. I think that's a wake-up call for them. I think they get back to business. And I think playing against this Boston team, who's also been, for the most part, stingy defensively, a lot of unders. I'm going to the under, Steele. And what I wanted to get off my chest as well is 5.5, I don't know if I'm loving, but I might bump it up to 6.5. I don't care about the odd. 6.5 or 5.5, I'm taking the under. 8 of the last 10 games between these two teams have also stayed under the number. That's number 1 pick. Number 2, Tampa at Toronto. Steele, check me on this one, but something's off with this Toronto team right now. And I know Austin Matthews is looking good. You and I have talked about him at length. This team needs to figure it out. Sloppy breakouts. I hate that, Steele. I hate when teams can't break out. That really bothers me. You and I will talk about the Leafs maybe later in this week, but I think the Tampa Bay Lightning have some vengeance in their back pocket after the last performance, and that's what I'm banking on here. Tampa Bay on the money line. Also right now, Steele, let me bring this up. Paying plus money, plus 130 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm not turning that down against this Leafs team right now, but I'll say this. Austin Matthews is going to continue to get his. I predicted that his shot after that Boston Bruins game, he was starting to look very lethal. And then once again on Saturday against the Sabres, my goodness, Steele, he does a little bit of everything. And let me bring this up. In his career against the Tampa Bay Lightning, regular season, 10 goals, 12 assists for 21 points in 19 games. Give me the Austin Matthews anytime goal, and that's my lock of the night. I think the Leafs will struggle, but I think the only thing that's really been one of their consistents this year keeps going. That's Matthews. Those are my picks.
Man, those the 4 additions they made this offseason have been probably the reason why we're losing half these games. Bertuzzi, Domi, Reeves, and Klingberg, just sloppy play.
Was it you who put out the tweet, though, that after that BS play, the can opener from Marchand, did you say, what's the point of bringing in Reeves and bringing in these guys? That was you, right?
Yeah, what's the point of bringing in these guys if they're not going to do anything?
Reeves is sitting there mouthing from the bench, my guy.
And Bertuzzi's laughing.
We didn't bring you in to play 7 minutes of a night and not produce anything. Get out there and throw some punches. Anyway, I'm not going down that trail, Steele, but take it away, please, before I get heated.
Besides that, hey, that first pick of yours, we're on the same page this entire episode. Bruins Stars. I was also going back and forth, thinking the exact same thing. Do I bump it up to under 6.5 or leave it at 5.5? I'm going to leave it at under 5.5 for now. I could change it before game time. But first pick, Bruins Stars, under 5.5 at minus 105 right now. Second pick of the night. This guy's been absolutely elite. And I love seeing that graphic of Calder Trophy, Luke Hughes, Norris Trophy, Quinn Hughes, and MVP Jack Hughes. That would be absolutely insane to see the Hughes brothers win award. All 3 of them win awards this year. Yeah. But that's my second pick. Quinn Hughes, anytime assist Monday night against the Edmonton Oilers. I've loved his game so far this season. He loves playing with Roenick. That's got him going as well offensively. That's my second pick. And I don't think we've actually ever done this for big time bets. But I'm taking a chance right now because this is a big game, and some big words were made the other day from Connor McDavid. I'm going Connor McDavid, first goal scorer of the game at plus 900 right now. Great odds for Connor McDavid, first goal scorer. He's gone scoreless goalless in the last 5 games. He only has 2 goals so far through 8 games. He's been shooting the puck a decent amount. I think he's going to get his, and I think he's going to try to make a statement early on the road in Vancouver because they've lost the first 2 games to Vancouver this season.
And how about his comments? And I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to.
When you say death by 1,000 cuts, Steele, I don't know if you've ever used that term before in your life. I've been lucky enough to not use it, maybe once or twice. That is a horrific situation if you're describing it as by death by 1,000 cuts. And I know Connor McDavid is a very astute leader on and off the ice. He doesn't give a lot away. He keeps it close to the chest. I think that might be the most indicative comment I've heard about this Edmonton Oilers squad in years. And you and I have been on this, right? And we're not bringing up false rumors. McDavid and Draisaitl are not going to stick around for this mediocrity much longer, Steele. And this is for real. This guy is coming out and saying death by 1,000 cuts. Pay attention, because honestly, there are going to be changes coming in Edmonton sooner or later. I don't mean they're going to get rid of the best 2 players in the league. I'm not silly. But there are going to be changes made, or else this season will be a write-off soon.
Very soon indeed, because the ship has not been corrected just yet for the Edmonton Oilers. Those are the big time bets, though. My lock of the night, Quinn Hughes, anytime assist. Flip's lock of the night. I believe you said Austin Matthews, anytime goal.
Yes, sir.
Those are the lock of the nights. Those are the big time bets. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time is when you can find all of our episodes. And again, thank you so much for starting the new week off Monday for the Locked On Waiver-Wire Targets episode. Have a great day out there. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.